Welcome to the Movement Upgraded podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Hosler, licensed physical therapist and certified strength and mobility coach. Here you can expect to hear about all things movement. The Movement Upgraded podcast is a blend of the science of strength training, rehab, and mobility, mixed with the personal and professional experience to provide you with the steps you need to keep your body pain-free and moving well, so you can do what you love forever. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. This is episode 0, right? So I thought, what in the world should the first episode be? And I liked the idea of having a 0 episode. This is basically the intro podcast. I am going to cover in this very short little podcast what you can expect from my podcast, who I am to be talking about this stuff, where you can find more of my content, and how to make sure you're supporting the free content that I provide on here. So let's move into what to expect. Overall, the podcast episodes are going to be 30 minutes to an hour, but I do go off on tangents sometimes, so don't be surprised if things go a bit on the long side from time to time. Don't be surprised if I fumble with my words very briefly because my brain works so much faster than my mouth does. That happens. The plan is to cover all topics related to movement. So this is kind of going to be a perfect podcast for someone who is a movement nerd, coach, or clinician who wants to learn more. Or somebody who is just a self-proclaimed movement nerd with a Google degree in movement, thanks to your nagging injuries or issues or pain that you've been dealing with. So we'll cover all things related to movement, perfect for you if you're either or both of those people. Other things you can expect to hear on this podcast. We are going to touch quite a bit on science. I love science. It is the groundwork for most of what I do. There will be an occasional cuss word, so if you don't like that, just, ignore it. We'll breeze right through it, but it will happen most likely because I know myself, and that's just something to expect. Also, we're going to cover some personal anecdotes. So from me and from others I have on the podcast. So true evidence-based practice is not just the science and research, it's also personal experience. So you're going to hear a lot about that too, because research sometimes takes a while to catch up. And so we'll cover all the things. We are pretty serious over here, but we do have a side of sass, so do expect some sassiness. I am a type 8. That's my Enneagram number. So I will come across as aggressive to some people at some times, but I promise it is always from a place of love. So keep that in mind as you're listening to this. If it sounds like I get a little aggressive, it's always in a loving way. I promise. Some other things you may want to know about me, your host, are that I have a doctoral degree in physical therapy. I hold a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. I majored in exercise science. I hold multiple certifications, including a CSCS, which is a strength and conditioning certification. If you do not know what that is, now you do. As well as a functional range conditioning mobility specialist certification and a Kinstretch instructor certification. So I have others, I just don't keep up with them and they don't impact my practice right now. These are the main ones that I practice off of. So those are the most important to you, the listener, because this is the stuff we're going to talk about. I've been a physical therapist for over 4 years and I've helped hundreds of people get out of pain and get back to doing the things that they love. And that is my whole practice. I like to describe myself as having one foot in the door of healthcare and one in fitness. Most of my work is kind of blending the two. I absolutely love teaching and educating. And so that's why I'm so thankful that you're here, because obviously if you weren't, there would be no podcast. And you being here allows me to do what I love, and it allows you to hopefully learn some awesome things that will help you and impact your life. And it's just a great mutual relationship we have here. So I just love it, and I'm excited to teach and educate. I absolutely loathe, however, misinformation and the misinformation that pervades the fitness and wellness industries. And I do feel like the movement industry is its own little niche within those industries, and it is so full of misinformation and overcomplicated things. I think that we overcomplicate things so much, and my goal here is to simplify them a little bit without oversimplifying, right? So you still need to understand the why and the how and the basics of science, but I don't think things need to be as complicated as they seem out in the world. So I care very, very deeply about other humans. So that's something you need to know. I do really care. I am fairly introverted, however. I'm an INFJ on the Myers-Briggs test. So if you understand that, you'll understand me as a person. But I am drained from people. So I love them and it just takes me time to recharge from them. So that's been an interesting thing to navigate as a clinician. Maybe I'll talk about that in the podcast, maybe not, but just something for you to know. I care very deeply. Last but not least, thing that you need to know is that I reject everything that has to do with diet culture. I'm on a personal mission to make sure women lift weights that weigh more than their purses. I really think women deserve not only to be strong, because that's really important for us as we age, hello bone density, but it's also really important for injury mitigation. And really, it's just awesome to feel strong and powerful. And I'm so tired of diet culture distracting women with this need to shrink all the time and just constant attention to how we look. And a big part of my story is that fitness was a big pathway towards me feeling strong and powerful. And I want to help as many women do that and experience that as well. So all of that to say, that's all you need to know about me for today. Where else can you find me? So I hang out on Instagram mostly. So I'm mostly in the stories pretty consistently. I do pump out the occasional content. So you'll see content there similar to what you find here, but of course with some more visuals. So if you're a visual person, you may want to check out my Instagram at Jen Hosler. Or you may want to go to our YouTube, which is just a Movement Upgraded YouTube channel. I will be coaching and demoing exercises there and breaking down topics, but we do a lot of coaching and demoing because while I do love teaching and educating, I also love coaching. So social media just allows me to do all of the things. If you have a question or would like to reach out, you can send me an email at jen@movementupgraded.com. I absolutely love hearing from people, except if you're going to be negative. So a little asterisk mark there. If you are negative, you don't like me, you don't like my podcast, please just don't listen to it. You don't have to. But if you want to tell me something or share something, or if you have a question, please reach out. I do love reading emails and communicating with people, especially via text or email, and I hate it on the phone. So again, back to the INFJ thing. If you get through some episodes and you love the podcast, please, please, please drop a review. It's the best way to support any and all free information that I provide here. And it's how I'm going to be able to continue providing information for you, but also it's going to help anybody who comes across this podcast figure out if it's a good podcast for them or not. So thank you in advance. I know it takes some time and energy, and writing reviews is the last thing we think about unless something bad happened, but it's so, so helpful. So if you could go do that, I'd be so appreciative. Last but not least, while I am a healthcare provider, this is not medical advice. So if you're currently in pain, you should go get assessed by a clinician who is licensed to diagnose and treat pain. This podcast is for education purposes only. Obviously, have to make sure we understand that. Education purposes only over here. With all of that being said, I think that runs through everything we need to cover today. I hope that you take some great things from this podcast. I'm really excited to be on this journey with you. Again, thank you for being here, and I will see you in another podcast.